Today I'm going to make a gasifying stove using this 4-inch tube. I've actually had this piece of metal for over a year and I've been trying to decide what to do with it. Marhaba, Giajuich, and sup Daisy? Daisy is my cousin and she's also a fan, so when you see this little flower in my videos, just know that's an Easter egg for her. Hi Daisy, thanks for watching. I'm also going to use some cold rolled steel plate and a piece of 1/2-inch bar stock. I do think using this 4-inch tube is going to be a lot better for airflow than the 2-inch tube that I used on the last rocket stove prototype that I tried to build. Although this is going to be a gasifying stove, so the airflow doesn't need to be as rapid as it would in a rocket stove, because the airflow is actually going to go backwards a little bit, pulling the gas out of the fuel and then up the side of the stove and then injecting it back in to the top of the stove for a secondary burn. For the body of the stove, I'm just going to kind of go visual here. I don't have a particular ratio in mind, so I think I'm going to start with 7 inches for basically the height. I want enough room for fuel, but I don't want it so high that it'll be top heavy, because I am going to probably add some 2-inch legs to this just to keep it off the ground or off the tabletop that I'm cooking on. The floor of the stove is going to come in a little bit higher up because I want an air channel underneath the floor to preheat the air that's going to be coming up the side of the stove. Alright, so there's the body and burn chamber of the stove, and now I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to clean up the mill edge as well. The floor is going to go in right about here, and then underneath that I want to put in an air channel, so like a second floor, but that's going to have a taper to it because I want the air to be able to kind of move in, and then there will be holes here that exit to a riser section for the gases to go up the side of the stove outside the burn chamber, and then they'll come back in right about here. This bottom floor is going to be welded in. The fire floor itself will be set in on some tabs. I'm going to cut arcs in the corners here so I can weld in those tabs. The floor is going to take a lot of the heat, and I want to be able to replace it easily. I can cut the 2 pieces I need for the floors out of this end of the scrap. By the way, I've got eyes and ears on, JW. And a respirator too. Before I weld the air floor in. We'll call this the air floor and the fire floor. There are going to be 2 rows of holes here, one above the air floor and one above the fire floor. So I'm going to go ahead and drill those holes to help me kind of figure out where to weld in this bottom plate. Rather than drill 2 more holes, I'm going to connect these 2 holes and have a full slot for air to come in here. The second row of holes will be smaller. The slot is going to give me a nice window to weld to there, at least on the top side. Then I'll tack the air floor in a couple spots down here. I'm going to use magnets to hold the air floor in place while I weld it. I bought my Lincoln 210 MP used, and it's been an amazing upgrade from my $200 Amazon welder. Lincoln's not a sponsor, but I can recommend them. Put a link in the description for the 210 MP if you're looking for an amazing entry-level welder that gets the job done. Just gonna do a couple tacks here, and I'll take the magnets off. The magnets are hot, I'm sure. I'm going to finish off these beads now. Now I'm going to create the notches for the tabs to sit the fire floor on. Got to keep reminding myself this is hot. Although this metal will soak up that heat and spread it out fairly quickly. But I still want to be careful. So my fire floor is going to sit in between the air floor notch here and these holes. Fire floor is going to basically go in right there. What I'm doing with this is making a step on the inside with this tab, which I'll tack in and then grind it off. And now for the other 3 corners. Now let's see if the floor fits. And more importantly is held up by tabs. So 2 of the tabs didn't go in far enough to support the floor, so I'm going to grind them out, enlarge the gaps, and make them bigger. So my air channel is going to come up the back here, and I'm going to cover that up with the little duct, if you will. It'll capture both the air from here underneath the floor and the combustion gases coming out of the burn chamber from these holes. But now I need to make a row of holes here that will let that heated air back into the top of the burn chamber, where it's going to provide secondary combustion. Run the drill bit backwards and kind of ream that out a little bit. These holes are a little bigger. That'll be okay because I've got plenty of air coming up. Nice big chips here indicate a nice sharp bit. Keeping it sharp by using this cutting oil to keep it cool. Since we got the harder metal here cutting the softer metal. Alright, success. Give these a quick cleanup pass. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the metal here as well, where I'll be welding in my air channel. I'm going to make my air channel out of this plate. I'm going to do about 1/4 inch of depth to it. While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and cut a groove at 1/4 inch to bend over the sides. Now to close off the two ends, I'm actually gonna cut a bevel here and then notch and bend over a tab here. Now I'm gonna tack this in place on the sides, and then I'll heat up and bend down the tabs. It's not bending as easily as I thought it would. I don't want to flatten out that channel at all. I'll just cut these off and weld them back on. That's not going anywhere. Bad technique on this side. I didn't really do circles. I should have. I just did a line. That's not the right way to do it. I sealed the gap and the metal will stick together. I'm still learning how to weld. I will clean it up a little bit when I'm done with all the welding. I'm gonna leave these as a reminder that I still got some work to do, but also that I've come a long way. Now for some legs. I'm gonna use this 1/2" bar stock to make the legs. They'll be splayed out a little bit here, so I get a little bit of stability on this stove. And I'm gonna get it off the ground by a couple of inches too. Got a 13-inch piece here that I picked up at the metal supermarket in the drop room, so it's a scrap. And that'll get me 4 3-inch legs with a little bit of extra for kerf. And I'll make the legs 2.5 inches tall, and about 3/4 to 1/2 inch of overlap onto the body of the stove. Actually, we'll call it 2 inches and 1 inch. And now I'm going to cut an angled notch into the legs. The legs are going to go on the bottom of the stove like this. Rotate them out a little bit like that, which is why I didn't cut the bottom angle on it yet, because I needed to figure out what that was. Try and attach it just by going underneath here so I keep the outside of the leg clean. Hopefully that'll be enough attachment strength. Now I'm gonna figure out this angle here, and I can match that in the other direction. Now I'm gonna clean this up a little bit with the grinding wheel. Somebody was razzing me for it being time for a new one. I think I can get a little more out of this one. Maybe another 2 minutes. And now I'm gonna level off the legs. There's a little wobble to fix, but that won't prevent me from testing this. Before I can do that though, the last thing I need to do is put several rows of holes in the floor, because I want some air moving up through the fuel that way as well. The stove and the floor with some Rust-Oleum High Heat Ultra. Good for up to 1200 degrees. Resists heat. This fire floor is probably going to get hotter than that, but at least it will protect the bare metal a little bit in the meantime. I'm going to give this 2 coats. Gonna let this dry for 1 hour before I can add heat. So I actually let the paint dry / cure overnight, and now I'm gonna light it up. So technically this is the back of the stove. Well, I guess it really doesn't matter, but the opening for the air is here on the front, and I'm actually going to put the floor in with the row of holes facing front. There's my stack of magnets to put it down in. Let me stop here and say this. This is a prototype. And I like to show you prototypes because I want you to see the process I go through to figure stuff out. Normally when you have a gasifying stove, the hot air comes up all 4 sides or all around, as in the case of a solo stove. I've quartered that with my hot air coming up one side and injecting back into one side. So ideally the way this works is the air comes in the bottom, it's heated by the fire underneath the floor. Some of the air is heated in the fire, the initial combustion in the bottom, and then enters the air riser up the side here. That superheated air is then injected back into the top here through these holes to provide that secondary combustion. I am curious if it's going to be enough. I use a combination here of my favorite salvaged fuels or found fuels or trash fuels. I'm going to light it with a little bit of lint. What I'm going to throw in here is some pistachio shells and some chopsticks. I light it with a torch. Throw a couple popsicle sticks in there for good measure. This will take a little while to get going. And certainly for the heated airflow to happen, it's got to warm up the body of the stove. It's a pretty clean burn so far, and I'm seeing the occasional tiny wisp of smoke coming out of the air injection ports from the air channel. No secondary combustion yet. I'm wondering if I could have loaded this up with a lot more fuel, perhaps even almost filling it up. A batch of fuel instead of adding fuel as I go. I feel like if I dumped in some more wood right now, it would put that fire out. But I'm gonna try that. It didn't kill the fire fully, which is a good thing. Let's see if that'll reignite. I'm gonna drop in a couple of chunks of candle wax and see if that helps the burn. It may be that I've completely blocked the airflow from the bottom with all those shells, and it's just not gonna get the airflow underneath that it needs. I'll give it a little bit longer here and see if it'll start cooking. Fire's smoking like it went out. All right, I think I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna try another alternative fuel here, which is sweet gumballs. Inherently more airflow in this fuel. All right, I'm gonna switch to sticks. All right, that's burning much better. It is all about the airflow. There's some secondary combustion happening. Just a little bit. It feels like there's not enough airflow to the bottom of the fire though, because the wood is just getting black, coaling up without combustion on it. The combustion's happening higher up, or on the edges. A little bit of secondary combustion, but I want primary combustion as well. It needs to be burning down low, in addition to up high. I'll let this fire burn out and then add more holes to the floor. I decided I'm going to start by trying to just finish holes out on the front, sort of 2/3 of the floor, leaving the back here for a gasification zone. At least that's how I imagine it working in my head. We'll see if that makes sense. I'll lock this down. All right, let's give this a try. I experimented with several different fuel configurations, from the pistachio shells to paper to sticks and twigs. Here I've got it kind of overfilled with the pistachio shells, but you can see that it is gasifying, that the airflow is a little bit constricted. You can also see how the smoke kind of hangs down in the fire. Like you can tell there's a vacuum there holding that down, and then perhaps pulling it into the side channel to heat up further for secondary combustion. And there's definitely a good bit of fire coming out of those top ports, or at least reigniting the gases as the heated air comes out of the top ports there. I can see that it's still wanting to pull air down in from the top to feed the fire. It's not getting enough air from underneath. So I think what I'm going to do is add a row of holes in the front of the stove here, above the fire floor, so it can pull air in right there at the base of the fire. Alright, I'm going to let this cool down and get that done. Fire floor comes in right about here. I'm gonna mark my holes here just because I want them to be a little more orderly since they'll be on the outside of the stove here. I'm gonna hit these holes with a file on the inside just to knock off the edges. Clean up the tops too. Alright, let's test again. My cool little orange square here is from a buddy of mine on YouTube here, Greg Porter of Guru Machine Works. Also Skyscraper Guitars. This is the 2-inch square that he makes them bigger as well. There are 3 different sizes. I'll put a link to his website if you're interested. They unbolt from the bottom here. You can take the leg off if you need to use it without the leg. Otherwise it registers really nicely to the edge of the workpiece. Alright, more holes in the floor, more holes in the front. I hope I have enough airflow now. I'm gonna load this up with some sticks to start. It's a good looking burn. Happy with that so far. I can see the smoke kind of hanging down, so it's pulling a vacuum as well. No secondary combustion yet. Starting to see some secondary combustion. Ooh, it's a little windy today. Doesn't really like the wind too much. But I feel like I've gotten this build as far as I can right now without some further testing. And I'm gonna do that in some subsequent videos. One of the things I'm gonna add is a grill. The grill in particular that I took off of a rocket stove when I redid it a couple months ago. That's how I'd like to be able to use this. Have a grill on top, be able to fry some pot stickers or a small hamburger or something like that. That was kind of the idea that I had in mind when I started building this stove. I've achieved the things I want to here. It holds heat pretty well. There's decent airflow. That could probably be improved, perhaps by adding air channels on the other sides. I want to experiment with it with one air channel like it's got now to see if it works pretty well to burn efficiently. There is some secondary combustion that's happening, and it is gasifying. So I also want to try this with some of my alternative fuels like the sweet gum balls, the pistachio shells, pine cones, stuff like that. Burn some waste fuels to cook some food. And that's what I feel like makes this stove green. If you can use trash for fuel, burn it efficiently, turn it back into energy, then I feel like this is a successful project. And that's my mission here at Green Shorts, is to help you see green so you can be green and save a little green by doing it yourself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Saturday.